Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon all of you, my fellow learners, professionals, brothers, sisters. How are you all? Been a while, actually. And before I started recording some of my planned content, I just wanted to address the elephant in the room, that is Sri Lanka, my country, or rather, the country I was born in, and its current predicament, how things have turned out to be so bad. And it's completely out of anyone's control now. It's just things are just happening. I mean, even the corrupt must have figured that their corruption with no limits will just lead to a point of no return, and you'll completely lose control. That's why they say, too much of anything is good for nothing. So too much of corruption even has a limit. If you exceed that, things are you yourself are gonna lose out on whatever you've been able to amass, accumulate. And that's the design of the designer. That's the beauty. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the world. He created the world in a way that nobody, no one, however powerful they think they are, however wealthy they think they are, however governing from a governance point of view, however powerful, whether they are the president or whether they are people person and a people's leader, however powerful they think they are, nobody is going to win. No one wins. And if nothing gets you, if your greed, your jealousy, your vanity, your envy, if nothing gets to you, Allah created death. He created death just just so just so that you'll know at the end that you can't win. So nobody is going to win. I think fundamentally that's the issue of us forgetting who we are, us forgetting our place on earth. That's where we went wrong. Human arrogance. Well, somehow I wanted to title this video as what went wrong with Sri Lanka. And I see two things. One at a dunya level, at a worldly level, and one at the highest level, which is which is like really at the highest level. So firstly, I'd like to touch on the way I see it. Why did Sri Lanka fail as a state? At the human level, it is because the people in this country, the people who were born into this country, had a responsibility toward it, correct? Especially, I'm talking about people post British era. So this is 1950s, 60s, 70s, but more 80s, 90s. Is that especially during the latter part of the 20th century, 1970s, 80s, 90s, with politicians, politics overtaking the brains of this nation, the problem was people started to become selfish. So if you were a really educated degree holder, I'm talking back in the, let's say, for example, in 1980, if you were an educated degree holder and you were educated through free education, thanks to Kannangara maybe, what you decided was you had an opportunity to go into the government sector because you're really well trained for that. So you had an opportunity to go to the government sector, maybe take a assistant secretarial post in a very important ministry. You have all the qualifications, all the necessary tools, all the knowledge, and perhaps even the motivation to harness it. But what happened was, owing to different reasons, maybe it was the war, maybe it was the ethnic, the civil war we were having, the ethnic conflicts, or mostly because this was this is a singular Buddhist country, the majority of Buddhists. So I don't really see why more Buddhists, why a lot of Buddhists would leave the country. Tamils, of course, they have their reasons, right? Tamils, they had to leave. Most of the people I know have their family, long lost family, their grandparents, parents who left the country back in the day because they were facing a lot of pressure. Somehow, uh, at that time, people who should have taken responsibilities in the government, people who should have utilized the brains, the skills, the knowledge that they had, and used that to benefit the country rather than themselves. None for himself, but all for the country, right? That would have been the slogan of my college, because in my college, the slogan was none for himself, but all for the school. And what I think the founder of our college tried to do by telling us that time and time again was only then ultimately you will benefit. Only if you serve your country or your school, that level, only if you serve them, then in the long term it will benefit you. If not, you're also doomed. If you chase a selfish pattern, if you just think about yourself and your family and your parents and your children, and that's what all people do mostly today. Even when you log into social media and you look at what people say, and people have a lot to say, they just have so much to say, but they only say. They don't, whatever they do in their life, their skills, their abilities, their knowledge, those things only serves them. That doesn't serve the country. That doesn't serve the nation. That doesn't serve the future of this country. This may not be the case with the minority, but this is predominantly the case with majority. So somehow back in the, especially in the 1980s, 1990s, there was a huge brain drain in this country where people who should have taken critical posts in the government, in the building of this nation, didn't. They became selfish and they made selfish decisions in their life. And today that has led to, and see, it led to a bigger problem. And what that problem was, that when the people who were appropriate did not fill those seats became vacant. The educated didn't become politicians, so the educated didn't go to the parliament. The educated and the well-mannered didn't, the high moral people didn't go to the, so-called, didn't go into presidential secretariat. They didn't go into education ministry, tourism ministry, apparel, construction, manufacturing ministries. They didn't go. They didn't, and that created vacancies. Who went into those vacancies? The leftovers, obviously. People who are left over. People with a little bit of power, maybe a little bit of say-so in their village, in their area. They started seeing an opportunity. Previously, they never would have even imagined to consider a government position. Previously, a thug would never have imagined that they could go into a position of power in the parliament, much less the parliament. Just divisional secretariat, the low level governing officers. They would never have imagined. But what happened was, when the vacancies kept on getting created, news traveled, and people started, one or two people started doing it, and then everybody realized here you have a massive opportunity. And today, you look at the parliament, there's a bulk of thuggery and rowdyism and violence, and well, you just have to look at a Hansard report, right, to know what's going on in the Sri Lankan parliament. And that is what happened. So at a human level, I fundamentally believe this is a classic case of people of this country at one point or the other, maybe you and me even, disregarding our responsibility towards the society. Not the country in particular, the society. We are only making selfish decisions. We only think about us, our family, our land, our property. We don't consider this to be a harmonious and unique and united society. That led to this. But at the deep level, at the highest level, and this is important, that leads me to Islam. Because when you look at all of this, right, when you look at our country, When you look at the opportunity the people have been given, and the best opportunity, the biggest, the most beautiful opportunity people have been given is life. What we do with our life is the test. Allah created life and death. He created life and death. He didn't create only life. When he created life, he created death also. Death is a creation of Allah. So he created that to test us. The Quran is very clearly saying this. So it really comes down to whether we're going to pass this test and what we have to pass this test. And today, at a deep level, the biggest test, right? The biggest test is, who do we turn to? Who do we rely on when we go through problems? Who do we truly and ultimately submit to? Who do we worship? That's the ultimate test. Think. And I greatly think about this, and I think everyone has to, everyone must, because everyone seems to be bowing down to somebody or the other. Right? You see, there are various hashtags going around, and some of them are being made into memes and all that. But everybody's a slave to someone or something. Some are a slave to their desires, their passions. They just, if their emotions say something, go to partying. Let's party. Let's drink. You just give into it because it's emotion. I know all too well about that. So some are slave to their desires, and then desires become their gods. Some are most are slaves to money. So money becomes their god. They worship money, not in a way that is symbolic of, general worship, but in the way they associate with money. They think about money, they chase money, they're always going behind money. Money controls them, and because they're chasing money, they even forget to be nice to other people. They even forget to be kind to other people because they're so focused on money. So their god becomes automatically money. That's the case of the most people in the world. And perhaps, if you really closely look, why the country's economy is in this state is clearly because there has been a lot of looting, correct? A lot of people, well, a few people have stolen a lot from the resources and the public revenue that is generated in this country. So why do people loot? And why do people loot at that level? Loot more than they need. That's because wealth, money, or power is their god. They worship those things. That means they go behind those things. If you're going behind something, it becomes your god. So it's a classic case, in a deeper level, it's a classic case of people worshipping anything other than the one true Ilah, the one true God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what happens to a country. This is what happens to a people. And you have plenty of examples. You don't need to look at Sri Lanka. You can look at examples, even any example from any country in the world. If you look at the United Kingdom, the current situation of the United Kingdom is really bad. Look at the current situation of Ukraine. Look at the situation of Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, the United States, of all of them. Right? Look at the situation. Look at what a majority of people are going through. A majority of the people, some of the African nations, a majority of the people are suffering. There are various issues, various problems, either in the form of a pandemic or a disease or financial crisis or health crisis, some sort of issue. Right? That is when a classic case of people worshipping something or someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is happening. And this is what we can derive from the evidence. When we have to really think, this is a good time to really reflect on who our God is. Do we have many gods, or do we have only one God? Are we going to meet him? What is he going to ask us? Do you know that when you meet God, once you die, you're going to have a limbo period, and it may be a second like that, or it may be a very long time duration. Time is perceived differently after death. And then you're going to meet your creator. And your creator is going to ask you a few questions. There are mainly 5 questions your creator will ask from you. And one of those questions is, what did you do with your knowledge? That's one of the questions. Imagine the predicament of all the people in this world who had great knowledge, who Allah bestowed great knowledge to them, but they only used that knowledge for self-serving purposes. Imagine their predicament. Will the creator be happy or angry? Perhaps even disappointed? These are questions that I think we need to deeply reflect on. We need to really think about how we choose to live, what we need to do, what we are ready to sacrifice, etc. And this is it. This is my warming up video for, I think, a couple of, inshallah, busy months ahead. This is why I believe Sri Lanka has failed as a country. At the humane level, it's because people who had the capacity, who should have taken the opportunities, neglected and ignored their responsibilities. And at a deep level, it's because people chose to worship anything and anyone other than the one true God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On that note, I'd like to wrap this video up. There's exciting work coming up. I hope this has really given you a few things to think about and ponder about, and I hope it drives you closer toward the straight path, Sirat al-Mustaqim. Thank you so much, and may God bless you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.